What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we are talking about Strange Darling. So let's get into that. Hi, my name is Leo V. As I talk about movies, TV shows, video game related, or just anything nerdy, you have come to the right place. And like I said, today we're talking about Strange Darling. So without further ado, let's get into the review. Now, you might notice my new setup. I'm trying some new things. I was able to rearrange some things, make it look a little bit nicer. Things will probably change as I go on, and I want to make this kind of a perfect little setup. This is not the angle I really want. I want a little bit wider. There's some things off to the side that you can't really see quite yet, but hopefully soon enough I'll have that setup going good for you guys. But let me know what you guys think about the new setup. I think it looks pretty awesome on camera, so I'm very excited for you guys to see this, and this kind of being my new setup for now as the channel kind of goes on. But heading back into the review, today I went and saw Strange Darling. This movie I was very blind to. I didn't see any trailer. I didn't see any promotion. I just knew that it was kind of like a horror thriller, kind of serial killer movie that seemed to have some pretty good buzz from it. I think this movie came out earlier last year in some film festivals and things like that, and they finally released it to the public just this past weekend. But me coming in very blind, I had no expectation, did not know what this movie was going to be about, what any of the premises really were, and I was pleasantly surprised. Now, starting off with the positives, like I said, I came into this movie very blind, so I definitely had a much lower expectation. I did not know what I was walking myself into, and I was very, very surprised and very pleasantly surprised about what the story kind of was and how the way it was structured, the way it was shot, the way it was told, the performances and everything like that. So let's kind of break that down. I really enjoy the way the story was told. This was broken into 6 different chapters, but they did it in a way where you started off in chapter 5 and then you went back to chapter 1 and then down to chapter 6, and it just kind of went back and forth. And as you were doing that, you start to kind of peel back the layers of what's really going on. And I really enjoyed the way they kind of revealed that, and it kind of subverts some expectations of what this movie is kind of going, and it goes into very unique directions that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I thought really paid off itself very well. And it paid off itself very well because also the characters that we have here, you know, we have like Kyle Garner that I think did an amazing job. For me, he's kind of the standout. You also have, can't remember her name off the top of my mind. I think her last name was like, I don't remember. She's in Reacher, and I've seen her in a couple of other things, but I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But I thought her performance was also done very, very well. Like they kind of bounce off their performances very well with each other. You can definitely see the chemistry on screen. Even though there's a lot more kind of sinister stuff going on, you can definitely see how they kind of connect on screen. I think it does very, very well. And again, that kind of just translates through the way the story is told, the way you start to kind of reveal and peel back the layers of what's really going on. And it's within those performances and also within the storytelling. And then you also have great cinematography, great shot choices. You know, I like how in the beginning it tells you this movie was shot on 35 millimeter only. And you definitely see the way it's very artistic. I like the way how horror movies and thriller movies are starting to kind of become that more artistic kind of style. You know, it's not like just a schlocky horror movie. This definitely has some more deeper layers and meanings, and meant to be more of that, you know, cinematic experience, a very more artistic experience, something that goes a little more deeper than your typical horror film. And I really like that approach with a lot of new horror movies, that, you know, hopefully one day this genre gets a little bit more recognition from, you know, like the Oscars and stuff like that, where you have these films that are meant to be Oscar winners. You know, we're starting to see those horror movies kind of horror and thriller movies kind of come into play, where they're a lot more like an Oscar winner type of film. They're much more artistic in the way they're stylized and shot and directed. So I really enjoy the way this movie was directed, the way it was shot, and the way the story was told, and the way the cinematography looked. This movie did look very, very well. It was done very well the way this movie was filmed. And obviously I'm not going to go into any spoilers, because I definitely think you should go watch this movie fresh. If you have the opportunity to not see the trailer and you haven't seen the trailer yet, I think that is the best way to consume this film and see this movie very, very much with fresh eyes and not knowing anything about the premise. I think it works a lot better in that way, especially when you start to reveal a lot of the different things that are going on. Again, I'm not gonna go into any spoilers, but I do love the way it kind of subverts your expectations, and it takes it into a different, unique way. And it starts to, for me at least, ramp up as the runtime goes on. It definitely feels like it's starting to move faster and faster as it goes. And at first, I felt a little lost and didn't know how I felt about the movie just quite yet. It didn't grasp me yet. But then there's a sequence where it definitely hooks me, and throughout the entire movie, I really enjoyed the way it kind of kept it going. And by the end of it, I was pretty much, for the most part, fully satisfied of the way this movie kind of wrapped up and the way it ended and kind of how it all kind of comes together. I really enjoy the way this film kind of wrapped up and just the way the story was told again. You know, it's hard to talk about a movie like this that I feel like it's such a unique experience if you're able to see it with fresh eyes, you know, because I don't want to give too much away. Like there's so much about the movie that is done so well, and I really enjoyed it, you know, and I'm glad I was able to see this movie with a blind eye. Now, there's minimal gore and kind of bloody moments within this movie, but I think the way they do it was done very well. I think the special effects, in terms of like makeup effects, were done very well. They look really good, look realistic, very believable. So I do enjoy just the special effects in terms of like gore or makeup effects and bruises, and just the way they kind of portrayed how our characters are getting injured as the kind of story goes on. And I also really enjoyed all the side characters, you know, the people that we really get only introduced for a couple of minutes, you know, no longer than 10-15 minutes. I think they were all fun, they were all unique, and they all served the purpose for the most part. And I just enjoyed all the side characters. I think they were just kind of a fun cast to kind of be around. And there was a couple of surprise castings that I wasn't expecting that I also very much enjoyed from some of my favorite shows and things like that. And one last thing in the positive, I do think the score and soundtrack was done very well here. I like how every time we get Kyle Gardner's character, there's this really ominous soundtrack or very ominous score that kind of plays in the background. And I think does a very good job of kind of bringing that aura for him. And then just the soundtrack in general, I think there was a lot of music in this movie that just fits for what the vibe is going for, the vibe that you see on screen. So I really enjoy the soundtrack and I really enjoy the score. It just kind of stylizes the movie a lot more, just, you know, on top of the way it's kind of shot. That music amplifies the way this kind of movie has that little bit of style to it as well. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the cons. Now, with the cons, there's just a couple of things. One, I do think this movie is a little bit slower paced towards the beginning. It's a little bit of a slow burn, and kind of you're wondering when something's going to happen, and especially with only an hour and a half runtime, it feels like the beginning gets dragged out quite a bit. And even once you get past all the kind of craziness that happens within that second to third act, they give you an epilogue. Like I said, this movie is done within 6 chapters. And once you get the story from each 6 chapters, you get an epilogue. And for me, that epilogue wasn't necessarily necessary. I think some of that could have been fit into some of the chapters. And I would have liked a little bit more of a cutthroat ending. In my opinion, I think that would have worked a lot better for me. That's just my personal preference on the way the movie ended. I was still overall satisfied. But I do think some things could have been tweaked a little bit. And we also have some characters in here. While most of them were very enjoyable, there were some characters that do some kind of idiotic stuff by the end of it that really doesn't make sense. And I kind of understand what they're trying to go for, but I think it kind of ruins a little bit of the believability and the suspense of kind of what's going on. And, you know, again, I can't go into too much spoilers because I'll start giving things away, but there's some characters towards the end that do some pretty idiotic stuff that ends up being very frustrating. And while you're watching the film, you're kind of just there like, oh my God, bro, like really? Like they're right there. They're right there and you're just ruining it. You're not listening. And it becomes a little frustrating towards that end portion of that movie. Once you start to kind of wrap everything up, it gets a little annoying with certain characters doing these kind of idiotic decisions. But that's going to be it for this one. Let me know what you guys think about Strange Darling. Did you guys see it already? If not, let me know if you're excited for this movie. I definitely had a great time with it. Definitely not a perfect film, definitely not one of the best of the year in my opinion, but it's one of those movies that I had a good time with. It has some good vibes, some good energy, very nice visual, and a very interesting and compelling story, but doesn't always land that mark every single time. But overall, I did really enjoy it. Let me know again your thoughts in the comment section down below. And again, if you guys like talking about movies, TV shows, video game related, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.